ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, שהכל נהיה בדברו. I mention it once again. Remember, the source of my reflections are always the Bible, especially major events, the Exodus of Egypt, the giving of the Torah, the Ten Commandments, the tablets of the law on Mount Sinai. Our rabbis say that when God approached them with the law, our ancestors said, Na'aseh v'nishma. We are ready to do, we are ready to understand. Actually, they said it in the wrong order. They should have said first, we will hear what you have to say, we will understand what you want, and then we'll be able to do it. No, but they were willing to do it before they even heard what God was going to tell them. Maybe that is a sign of their faith in God. They relied entirely on God. If God wants something, it must be the right thing. We are ready to do it, and we will understand it later on. Our rabbis say, there's an expression in the Torah, it says they were at the foot of the mountain. Actually, what God did was, He raised the mountain, Mount Sinai, on top of the Jewish people. And He said to them, either you accept to live by the Torah, by the norms that I'm about to give you, or else I will let go of this mountain on top of you and you'll all die. So our ancestors said, we are ready to do. Of course, anybody under a threat of death, he'd rather save himself. We're ready to do. What does that tradition tell us, really? Maybe it's trying to tell us the following, that without law, you can't live. Without certain norms, society can't exist. It's not that whether you want to or not. You must have a certain set of rules, otherwise we annihilate each other. So it's trying to tell you there is no alternative to a law, to order in a society. Maybe that is the explanation for that. Or maybe something else. What our ancestors were trying to say is, by doing, we will start to understand. As you do, you understand more. And actually, it is a circle. It is an ongoing process. You do, you understand. You do it again, you understand it better. You do it again, you do it better now because you have new understanding and you keep on doing and understanding. It is a continuous process. Maybe that is what our tradition is trying to tell us. One thing is the theory, another thing is the practice. The practice itself tells you something about the theory as well. But there's another thing, another insight that I found, that I read someplace obviously, that I found very interesting. It's saying the following. Doing is very important. Of course, the person who studies and never does anything maybe isn't contributing enough to society. But I want you to know the expression of our ancestors is teaching us that to study, to understand, is a goal in and by itself. In of itself and by itself. In other words, it's very important to do, but it's also very important to study, to understand. At this stage of my life, material things no longer produce the kind of enjoyment, and I mean spiritual, emotional enjoyment that they used to years ago. You know what moves me today? When I understand something new, when I get a new insight, when I suddenly realize the reason for something, when I study history and suddenly I can project into things that happened later on, when I study behavior of society and suddenly I come to the conclusion, now I know why people are doing things the way they're doing. Understand, not because I'm going to do anything. Knowledge in of by itself is a very important thing. And I think that in the 21st century in which we live, we come to the greater realization that progress really depends upon knowledge. It's knowledge for its own sake. In Hebrew there's a saying, Torah lishma. I study Torah not because I will know what to do, but for its own sake. Knowledge for its own sake. That is very important. And I think that the greater knowledge we acquire maybe at the same time brings us pain because we realize and understand better the evils that occur in this world. But I think that the future of the world really depends upon investigation, about experiments. You know, universities and the state many a time go hand in hand. Investigations that take place in university produce certain advancement. We discover new drugs. But it's not only about the discovery of new drugs. It is also about the discovery, the understanding of how the human being functions. You know, how we come to recognize ourselves, how we recognize the world outside of ourselves. All these processes, I think, are really in the forefront of advancement of society. It is not only a question of material advancement. It's a question of emotional, spiritual, and maybe very important intellectual advancement of society.